Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a Star Trek news podcast presented by TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on February 6th, 2026, and is current through the Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1 episode Series Acclamation Mill, so beware of spoilers. Alright, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a regular news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in the Alex Kurtzman era of Star Trek with the 12th television show currently in production and 14 movies to enjoy, and merchandise continuing to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me and I'll help you sort the real facts from lots of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is returning guest Bill Mann. Bill, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Thanks, so happy to be back. Talking about a really big week in Star Trek news.
Oh, yes. Well, Bill, you know the drill. I want to know something's got you excited about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
I'm going to say that, the obvious is what just took place on Starfleet Academy. That would be the easy answer. But I'm going to combine the last two episodes.
Okay.
As like kind of my, and I think you said something similar to this. The episode 4, Vox and Excelso, felt like the moment that I really fell in love with the show.
Yes.
And I just was really wowed and blown away by the world building and the big picture elements and the way that they handled Jaden Cragg as a character. Like that episode really swept me away in a way that I wasn't expecting. And as somebody who's tuned in and listens to the internet, I knew a couple things going into episode 5. I didn't know the details. I didn't know many of the things that we're going to talk about here tonight, but I kind of knew what was coming. So I was on my toes, ready for 5. And got what I kind of assumed was essentially coming with many more surprises involved. So the kind of combo platter of 4 and 5 have really locked me into the show and gotten me excited about what's to come.
It's really good. It's really...
is.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I was a little slow watching the screeners when I got them, partially because... it was shortly after I had said on this show, like, I'm a little burned out with not with Star Trek, but with the discourse around Star Trek. And so
I remember
the screeners had come in and I'm even more burnt out on the discourse around Star Trek. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode. But the screeners came in and I was just a bit like, I don't know that I'm necessarily in the, like, mental place to watch these immediately. So... I had friends who, sort of raced ahead, right, and watched all 6. And when I say that, I mean it took me like 3 or 4 days to get around to watching them from when they arrived. But by that point in time, several of our friends had already watched all 6 of them. So yeah. I had been told the same thing, right? That like, oh, this episode 5 is really special, like a thing you've got to watch immediately. So as I was watching 1, 2, and 3, I was like, okay, well, yeah, show's fine, right? Like, it's okay. But I've been told this 5's this big episode, but then 4 hit, and I was like, wait, why are we not talking about 4?
Yeah.
Because I was watching that episode, and in some ways, because it was the episode right before I'd been told there's a really big one coming, I was kind of just like, what's this episode? I got to get through it to get to 5. But as I was watching it, I was like, wait, this episode rules.
It does.
And I even, because I had all 6 to watch, I stopped after 4, and I was like, even though my friends have said 5 is this really big episode and I could watch it tonight, I don't want to just roll right into 5.
Yeah.
I want to sit with 4 just for a night, and then I'll come back to 5 and watch 5 tomorrow. And yeah, like that 4 and 5. And then I think 6 is pretty good too. I personally might like 6 a little more than 5.
Exciting to hear.
It's a totally different episode again.
Which is one of my favorite things about the show, that it is so radically different week to week. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's so episodic, right? Like, we're 5 episodes in. Paul Giamatti's not showed up again since episode 1, right? Like, any fear that anybody had that there was going to be some big Star Trek Discovery like story that was going to bind the 10 episodes together, like, that has been well and truly dispelled by this point.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah, like at this point, And maybe 7, 8, 9, and 10 are Paul Giamatti episodes, in which
Sure.
case it'll feel pretty heavy on the Giamatti. But like as it stands right now, Giamatti, the sort of Caleb Mia Noose Brucker storyline is as present in season 1 as the Gorn storyline is in Strange New Worlds, and that's an episodic show.
Right. Yeah.
So it's an episodic show, which is great. It's wonderful, and it is really nice that the episodes are all so different from each other.
I love that, and I love that it's kind of low stakes and relaxed.
Yeah.
And like easy to watch. It's in a way that hasn't really been all that familiar, at least in the live action space, since the old days, really. I mean, it has this just casual viewing kind of vibe that I really, really am thankful is kind of back for the first time in a long time. I really appreciate that it's not a sprint to a big bad, like you said, or it's just a giant plot device that's kind of weaving these episodes together. It's just kind of a laid back, simple story a lot of the time about characters, and it's refreshing. It's breath fresh air. And at a point when I think the franchise and this iteration of new shows kind of needed this, I think.
Yeah. Even this episode with the Cirroc Lofton cameo and the Avery Brooks voiceover at the end and the Iliad Dax of it all, it's an episode whose A story is about a class project and whose B story is about practicing for a dinner.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, for a big episode, those are some bottom of the barrel stakes, which I say in with not one hint of negativity, because I think that's wonderful.
And that's been one of my favorite, or one of the most interesting things to kind of try to pay attention to in watching people talk about the episode is it's so strangely constructed and outside the box that I've been kind of fascinated to see where people kind of fall in the spectrum with it. Like, it kind of challenges you to with expectation, and I think there's been so much talk about this coming over the last couple of weeks. Like, wait and see 5, can't wait.
Right,
hold your breath, wait for 5 to come, and it kind of is this very relaxed character study about a person kind of finding themselves, which is really what all these episodes are.
Yeah,
which is awesome, and I think is totally Star Trek, but it's so counter to what I think some people may have had in their minds going into it, and I wonder how that is manifesting for some viewers who may have come in expecting to have unrealistic expectations for what this could deliver.
Right. Yeah. Hold that thought, because that's exactly the topic I want to come back to at the end. Let me give you what I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week. And we're sticking on series acclamation mill, because there's just like one little thing that I bet we won't talk about in the news stories that I wanted to kind of talk about. And that is Sam's instrument of choice being the theremin, which not only sets up that like great musical sort of piece right at the end of the episode where she's playing the theremin with the voiceover, and then you get the Avery Brooks voiceover, and and his face is in the clouds, and then the episode ends and it says thank you, Avery. I mean, it's just like wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's an effective way of kind of poking at the fourth wall without busting through the fourth wall, right? Like the theremin is such an iconic Star Trek instrument on the Star Trek production side of things because of its use in the original series theme. So it is pretty wink-winky for those people who, have a sense of that, but it's not. And it didn't end up in the show, but it obviously caused a big stink in the trailer, which is Paul Giamatti whistling the Star Trek theme as he walks down the corridor.
Yeah.
Which he said in an interview was just a throwaway take that they did that, just made it into the trailer. That was not going to be
part of it,
Yeah, that was not intended to be what the episode had. But I really liked it because it was, it was this sort of like fun way of, if you're a deep Star Trek person, giving you a bit of like a something that's like, oh, this is for you, but also fit within the episode really well. Like her explanation for why she picked the instrument made a ton of sense, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it was very character driven. It was a character driven way of breaking the fourth wall, and not just breaking the fourth wall for the sake of doing that. And I just thought that was a really nicely done moment that, like, we sort of have wondered is Starfleet Academy going to have it's a 60th anniversary, sort of a 60th anniversary celebration episode, and like whether Series Exclamation Mill was designed to be that episode or not, it definitely is an episode that fits that bill. Not just because of the Sisko stuff, but because of the theremin, because of the theme of the episode. Like it's just one of those, another really nice little moment in a very big episode of nice moments.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, well, with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Well, as we've been discussing, this week's episode, Series Acclamation Mill, is both another great entry in Starfleet Academy's first season that gives us significant new depth for one of our cadets, this time it's Sam's turn, but also turns into a total love letter to Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Avery Brooks' performance as Benjamin Sisko. The episode's co-writer, Tawny Newsome, talked to TrekMovie about the creation of the episode and said, quote, "I was pretty adamant that for this episode it was our job to make this an homage, a celebration, and really a bit of a correction for what I feel has been an oversight in a lot of modern Trek. We haven't talked nearly enough about the Siskos, about Benjamin Sisko, or about the show Deep Space Nine at all, despite it being a massive addition to our canon. So I was pretty adamant. I'll say I was frothing at the mouth some days about how important this was." Newsome also talked about the challenges getting the episode made, saying, quote, "Getting the episode made was such a gargantuan feat, and I have had so many partners locked arm in battle between co-showrunners Noga Landau and Alex Kurtzman, Cirroc Lofton, executive producer Aaron Byers, my co-writer Kirsten Beyer, who's been such a fierce advocate from the jump. So many people came to my aid to help me push this thing through. I don't even know where to start, but all I can tell you is that it was seemingly so impossible to be able to address the hugeness of the Sisko story with some of the limitations that we have because of the canon, some of the limitations that we have because of available actors, and we really just wanted to honor the man, Avery Brooks. We wanted to honor the character Sisko. We wanted to honor that show, which in the franchise has had the least rebooting. It's my absolute favorite, and I just wanted to celebrate it and not put a close to his story, but just put a little feeling of completion for one part of it to just give some of us some resolution. And in addition to giving the production permission to use a segment from his 2006 spoken word album Here, Newsome indicated that Avery Brooks was both aware of and has endorsed the episode. I don't know if he's seen it yet, but he has read it. And yes, it was really important for us as the writers to get his blessing at multiple steps along the way, thanks to Cirroc, who deserves an executive producer credit for this episode. He was well aware of things, maybe even before I was authorized to share them, but I was like, we've got to make sure Mr. Brooks is cool with this. And as to how the writers thoughtfully reconciled what we know of the Star Trek canon with Avery Brooks' strong contention for adding Sisko's line about his return in the Deep Space Nine finale, Newsome said, quote, "It was massively important to all of us in the writers' room to honor that request. And then we had to square that with the fact we have seen a lot added to the canon, and there hasn't been any mention of seeing him. So that puts you in a little bit of a storytelling quandary. How do we say this man came back, yet nobody's talked to him, and we haven't seen hide nor hair of him? So we sort of had to get into the territory of something that maybe science and Starfleet records can't explain, so that's why we wanted to put in Jake's mouth at the end where he literally says, I can't prove it. But all those things you think he missed, he didn't, he was there." Bill, what was your reaction to the Sisko story in Series Acclamation Mill?
I just thought it was really respectfully done for all the reasons that you just laid out from the article. It maintains an air of mystery while I think offering some form of resolution through getting a sense of how Jake moved forward in the aftermath of all of that. I thought I can't prove it. It's a different set of circumstances if we're to take that kind of literally to mean that maybe he never did come back in like a corporeal, tangible way, but his presence was felt. It's very different than the Visitor, but I think it almost kind of gives the Visitor some additional power as like a foreshadowing of like things to come with the way that Jake's going to have to move through life with his father kind of out of the picture, but kind of looming over him in his place at the Celestial Temple and all. So I think where they left it is incredibly satisfying to me, just based on what I always assumed in my own mind for the last 25, 27 years, whatever it's been. So I found it satisfying and respectful and reassuring that they waded into this kind of minefield and successfully achieved paying homage to both the character and the actor who played the character.
Yeah.
And, I think the best thing in the episode for me is Sam's kind of conclusion to her message when she's kind of thanking Sisko. Because as I think you and I are about the same age, I think I feel like I say that in just about every podcast I do with you. And if you're anything like me, and I know you're like me, you grew up idolizing that person, right?
Totally.
And
Yes.
he was a hero for people who were growing up watching that show. I have a baseball on my desk at work because
Nice.
of that person. Like, that's the one little Star Trek touch in my professional office that nobody knows unless they know, right?
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to do that since I was 10 years old because of my hero worship of Benjamin Sisko. So there are a lot of people out there who feel that way. And I think this was a difficult thing to tackle. And I think they successfully achieved exploring it, talking about it, shedding some light on the impact of his disappearance and what kind of happens at the end of the show without putting too fine a button on what exactly happened and what exactly it means. I think having it become like a mythological event that has kind of taken on that life of its own was also very meta for fandom and the way we consume this stuff and think about these shows. So, I think it's obviously handled with a lot of care from people who care about this stuff, this canon, this franchise. And I'm really grateful for that, because it made me sit there and reflect on how much that character has meant to me for, more than half my life.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, double tap everything you said. I also think I'm thinking a lot about this episode, and I've been thinking a lot about that last conversation in the episode between Sam and Jake.
Yeah.
And I think there are two possible interpretations for that scene.
Mm-hmm.
The first interpretation is the one that I think they wrote, which is Jake is basically a vision from Benjamin Sisko of Jake Sisko.
Yeah.
Right? That he has sort of like created this opportunity for Sam to talk to Jake as
to
sort
learn
of
a lesson.
learn a lesson, and for Jake to sort of serve as Benjamin's avatar, because the Sisko line at the end and him being in the clouds is sort of like
he's watching.
Has been watching this whole thing, has been totally aware of this mission that Sam has been on, and decided to sort of like ever so slightly pull back the curtain for her to kind of get a sense of it.
Yeah.
And even though he might not have sort of physically remanifested in Jake's life, Jake didn't feel like he had been abandoned by him, because he was this sort of non-corporeal presence throughout his life.
Yeah.
Like maybe not having a conversation with him, but like watching over him, keeping him safe, maybe helping good things to happen. And that does, like, I think Tawny Newsome's point around, because canon has not shown us anything about his return, you kind of do need to have something more than like, oh, he just came back 2 years later and then lived out the rest of his life and all was well, and we just haven't seen it. Especially since, Avery Brooks is 77, retired, definitely seems to like have a certain level of distance from public life, all you got to do is read these interviews about them talking to him and how he was talked about in the Deep Space Nine documentary to know that it's none of our business, but he's disconnected from public life. And so it's not like you're ever going to see Avery Brooks play Benjamin Sisko again in any circumstances. And so, like, this is a pretty good way of kind of acknowledging the real life realities, but making it resonant within the story context. But I actually think there's another interpretation of that scene. And depending upon whether you, the individual listening to this, was sort of like, I have seen this thread of people who were deeply dissatisfied because they wanted and interpreted Avery's request about Sisko's return to be a literal return.
Yeah.
And so feel like finding out that didn't happen
feels like a betrayal.
Feels like a betrayal, disappointing.
I've seen that too.
Yeah, and there's plenty of criticisms you can level at Starfleet Academy that I think are just crap. That's one where I'm like, I get it. I get why you might feel that way, but I think there is an interpretation of the episode that also lines up with that being something that people want, which is, you don't know that was actually Jake Sisko that Sam was talking to at the end of the episode. Obviously, it's Jake Sisko in the recording, but like, Sam says, "How did you get here?" And Jake's like, "I don't know, you kind of brought me here." And so this might just all be sort of a conjured kind of experience that Sam is having for herself with all of the information that she has.
Finally coalescing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, you don't know that therefore doesn't mean that
That's right.
actually Benjamin Sisko did properly turn up, that all we really know about the like actual fate of Benjamin Sisko is that to the Bajoran people and to the Federation, he didn't pop back up and say, I'm Benjamin Sisko and I'm back.
I've returned. Yeah,
I've returned.
Right.
I'm ready to take my commission back.
Right.
Give me command of Deep Space Nine back, and I'm going to continue my career as a Starfleet officer.
Yeah.
But, whether it's a mistake, it's definitely a misspelling, but like his daughter with Cassidy, not included in the family tree. And so, like, maybe he did come back and just live this extremely private life in his little plot of land on Bajor. Like, that also, to me, fits completely with what the episode tells you. If you sort of think about that last scene, not as being Sam having an actual conversation with Jake Sisko, but Sam having a conversation with what she thinks Jake Sisko would have said based off of everything that she's experienced. And the episode doesn't sort of definitively give you one answer or the other. I think they wrote it the first way. I definitely think you can interpret it the second way if your sense is that still doesn't feel like enough for me.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that that's a strength of the episode, because I think ultimately what the story is about is kind of coming to terms with what myth means, how these mythological beliefs, whether it's religious or just philosophical or historical, whatever it is that like shapes you, what matters is how you embody it and interpret it. And much the same way that like what we're talking about here is like stuff that goes through the minds of a fan who worships the show for decades and has thoughts and imaginings about what the ending means and where it leads. And each one of our takeaways from that are as valid as the next.
Right.
And I think the episode maintains that. And I think the lesson of the episode is Sam. The episode's about Sam. It's really not about Benjamin Sisko, which is what I think the disconnect for some is. I think they came into it expecting it to be some sort of meaningful resolution for what happened to Ben Sisko, or what did it mean, or what's like the next piece of Deep Space Nine that we didn't get to see in a magical season 8, where it's really about how does exploring this mystery, considering what this historical figure means, impact Sam's own understanding of herself.
Yeah.
And that I can relate to because I live that all the time. When I'm at my job and thinking about challenges of the day, personnel problems, the headaches that come from a professional life, the voices that are going through my head are often Benjamin Sisko and Jean-Luc Picard and James T. Kirk, Catherine Janeway. Like all these people are kind of like rattling in my head and are the heroes that I look up to that I know would make good decisions in these kinds of situations. So I relate to Sam wanting to learn from that kind of example and ultimately coming to that kind of realization through that experience with Jake, whatever that was. I don't know what it was.
Right.
And I like that first explanation. I think that's the most satisfying to me as somebody who hopes that that's true. But I'm open-minded to other things. And ultimately the way that I produced it and shot it and was I think consciously done to allow for multiple interpretations, the way that myths are allowing for multiple interpretations.
Yeah, I love that Star Trek's official position on Benjamin Sisko is get comfortable with not having an answer.
Yeah.
You know, like Star Trek's official position on Benjamin Sisko is you're never really going to know what happened.
Yeah, that's not why we study him.
And that's exactly how it should be, because Avery Brooks is not going to come back to play Benjamin Sisko again. Mm-hmm. Fans have had 1999 to
27
whatever that ends up being. A lot of years. Many of the years of my life, the question about what happened to Benjamin Sisko
is prominently on
my mind and completely unanswered. And I kind of like that Star Trek's official position is, and it's sort of going to stay that way, but in a satisfying way.
Yes, and to me, like that not only honors the character, I think it honors Deep Space Nine, because that's the choice that Deep Space Nine made.
Right.
To end the show on that question and to leave it open-ended, unlike other choices that could have been made, right? Like Deep Space Nine could have Ira Behr and Ron Moore and Hans Beimler and everybody on that writing staff in the seventh season could have made other choices to tighten that and make it more definitive, and they didn't. And I feel like what they did here maintains that choice, respects that choice, while still allowing the audience to kind of reflect on what that means and what that means to them, and to see in universe how that mystery has manifested in the lives of the people living within it.
Yeah. And this is a very astute and adept answer to something that Mike McMahon said during Lower Decks. When they did the Deep Space Nine episode, I can't remember what interview it was, but we covered it on WeeklyTrek. Someone basically asked him, like, oh, you've done a Deep Space Nine episode. Why do you think the Kurtzman era of Star Trek hasn't done much to revisit Deep Space Nine beyond Hear All, Trust Nothing? And Mike gave this really thoughtful answer that's kind of stuck with me. And he was like, because Deep Space Nine, unlike The Next Generation and Voyager, is the product of a very specific creative team.
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of scared of picking up their story
Yeah.
and doing more with it in a way that doesn't, that might not end up feeling authentic to that specific creative team. Because when you think about the creative team for Next Generation, you know, it changed over the course of the show quite a bit. Yes, by the time you got to the end of the show, it was Jerry Taylor and Ron Moore and Brannon Braga. But did they feel utterly interwoven and essential to the identity of that show in the way that Ron Moore, Ira Stephen Burr, Robert Hewitt Wolf,
Renee Echevarria.
Renee Echevarria, and like, you know, the 3 or 4 other people whose names I'm blanking on at this exact moment in time, like, were to Deep Space Nine.
No, yeah.
You know, like,
it's more of a moving target for those shows. It's kind of evolving every time, and
right.
And those shows weren't. I also remember an interview with Ira Behr at some point along the way saying something like, if this show is going to be continued, it's going to be on my terms because of the way that we chose to end the show.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, again, it kind of respects that choice.
Yes.
To not play too many games with extrapolating what would then happen in the immediate aftermath of, you know, what you leave behind.
Right.
So I'm glad they didn't do that.
Nothing about this prevents Ira Stephen Behr from telling more Deep Space Nine stories.
Absolutely.
Because this is a great character study of Sam.
It's about Sam.
Not this is what happened after Deep Space Nine.
100%. That's the key to it, I think, for a lot of people, that if you came into it expecting it to answer questions and offer meaningful new resolutions about your understanding of Benjamin Sisko, you're barking up the wrong tree. Like, that's not what this episode was constructed to do. I understand that I understand somebody's desire to get that.
Yes.
But that's not what this episode is aiming to deliver.
All right, well, our next story is also about Series Acclamation Mill, so let's dive into that so we can keep talking about this wonderful episode of Star Trek. Well, Series Acclamation Mill also sees the return of Cirroc Lofton to the Star Trek franchise as Jake Sisko in his first appearance as the character since 1999's What You Left Behind. And speaking to ScreenRant, Cirroc talked about his excitement about being in the episode. I've been excited for a year inside my head about this. I couldn't wait for everybody to see it. Starfleet Academy, it's a perfect segue for Jake, who was the youngest kid on Star Trek, to now be part of welcoming and ushering in the next young generation of Star Trek cast members. So I mean, there's so many meta levels to how this makes sense in so many different ways, from honoring the old to celebrating the future to the Dax character to all of these things that just tie in to make this a special episode. Carice Brooks brought it to life. Cirroc also talked about how personally meaningful it was to him to film a Star Trek show in Toronto, saying, quote, "This was another kind of full circle moment for me. They filmed Starfleet Academy in Toronto, and after the end of Deep Space Nine, actually overlapping with the 7th season, I did another show that was filming in Toronto. The first time I lived outside of my mom's home was when I lived in Toronto to film this show, and so getting a chance to go back there kind of brought back all these memories of me being in Toronto right on the tail end of season 7. And now doing Star Trek in Toronto, it meant a lot to me to be there and do it. Keeping the secret all this time was probably harder than actually doing the project. Because that secret was incredible work, I wanted to say something so badly. People asked me, do you think you'll ever be on Star Trek again? And I'm like, maybe." And about the thematic resonance between Jake Sisko's story and Sam's, Lofton said, quote, "But I will say this, what was important for me in this particular episode and what made something special to me is that Avery Brooks as Captain Sisko did so much for Jake and Cirroc, so they're kind of intertwined together. And what I thought was special about the episode was Sam's character needed somebody to help give her support and give her confidence, and that's what Sisko did for Jake. And I feel like Jake's now finally getting a chance to pay that forward to Sam's character and say, let me be somebody in your life who can fill you up with confidence and help your self-esteem and let you know that you are everything you want to be and anything is possible for you. I think having that word of encouragement, that's the paying it forward, that's the completion of the cycle. I got it from here and now I give it back here. And I think that's what we all should be doing in our lives, paying forward the blessings that we get, paying forward the gratitude, the opportunities. That was a special thing for me to do as Jake. Bill, what was your reaction to seeing Cirroc Lofton return to Star Trek?
That was one of the things I had no idea was coming. I was shocked by that. I'm impressed that folks like yourself, I know you're a very diligent secret keeper with your access to advanced copies of some of these things, but others are not so careful. And I'm really impressed that this stayed quiet because I really didn't expect it. And it was a really nice surprise. And I was impressed by his work in it. I think that last scene with him and Carice Brooks is the heart of the episode. And I was proud of him, to be honest, because he doesn't act in a very active way in the current environment. He does other things, and seeing him deliver that performance with such feeling and authenticity, and you can just feel like the respect for the material and Avery Brooks on every movement he makes. So I really, as again, somebody I've watched since I was a little kid, when he was a little kid, it was really nice to see him get such good scenes and deliver such kind of potent work. So I was really happy with that. And his involvement with the episode being developed, as discussed in both of the articles we've referenced so far, is also really nice to see. I'm glad that they kind of reached out to him and that he was kind of a part of the crafting of the story and the message and the kind of interpreting what Avery Brooks would want, or communicating to Avery Brooks, whatever the case might be, behind the scenes, what happened. His involvement on those aspects of it are really meaningful and give it a lot of extra oomph in terms of my respect for the episode as a fan. That behind the scenes knowledge is sometimes helpful. I'm also impressed by his ability to maintain his own secret because he's out there. He's out there talking to fans. Like, he's one of the more accessible people that was on these shows back in those days or in the current environment because of the style of the show that he does on YouTube. Like, he's talking to fans and on the regular, he's not inaccessible, and he's out there talking about Star Trek all the time. And I'm impressed that he never slipped and gave any kind of indication that he was doing this. So a lot of props to Cirroc Lofton for all that.
Yes, there was a certain ScreenRant reporter who, within the last week, was like slyly tweeting GIFs of Benjamin Sisko that I thought was like a really shitty thing to do.
It's terrible. Those people should get their stuff taken away.
Yeah, because it's not like you're not saying anything, but you're
winking.
You're winking and you're priming people's brains to have certain ideas right at the top of their brain.
Yeah.
And that is really taking something from the surprise of it all.
It's also flexing and like kind of a crappy,
absolutely.
It's not a good look.
Yeah. I think, as I said before on this topic, if you're one of those people who is lucky enough to have access to material before it comes out, get a group chat, and that's where you put everything about it, and you put nothing anywhere else. Anyway,
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, because the Cirroc stuff is such a wonderful surprise, right? Like, I had no idea going into the episode, and then she gets to the museum, and then she starts to pull up the recording, and I'm like, wait, oh my god, they're doing it! Oh my god,
there he is.
Yeah, there he is, and then he comes back again, and honestly, I was so sort of caught up in the Sisko of it all, as the DS9 devotee that I am.
Sure.
That sort of piece about the youngest cast member of Deep Space Nine passing the torch to the youngest cast member of Starfleet Academy now. Cirroc is, I was just looking it up, he's 47. He was born in, we almost have the same birthday, but 9 years apart. He was born August 7th, 1978. So he's Star Trek years old, and it like, now he's the sort of like old wizened cast member, and Carice Brooks is the baby of the cast.
Yeah.
And doing that sort of passing of the it's wonderful. I was so focused on like Jake Sisko as Benjamin Sisko's son, that Jake Sisko as mentor to 17-year-old Sam, which I think is probably how old Jake Sisko and Cirroc Lofton were by the time the sort of latter half of Deep Space Nine
certainly
rolls
deep into
around.
the show. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really meaningful too, in a way that I hadn't fully appreciated until I read this interview right before I wrote this
Yeah.
story.
Agreed.
Well, and we've got yet another Starfleet Academy interview, this time with Oded Fehr, who has reprised his role from Star Trek's Discovery as Admiral Charles Vance on Starfleet Academy. Speaking of TrekMovie about the vibe of the show, Fehr said, quote, "I live in Austin, Texas now. It's a college town. I love college towns. I love the optimism of students, the excitement of what's ahead and what the future holds. I think the show is very much like that. I think the show is very much Starfleet coming back post-burn to a time where we start exploring again. And starting the exploration is also what these kids are doing, exploring their new life and environment with their friends and everything that being in college means. I think for me to play the character of Admiral Vance, who was so hard always and tough and so on, and now he's in a period where decision-making is a little lighter, at least in the beginning, and it's great fun and it feels like that on set. You're surrounded by all these very young actors who are all relatively in the beginning of their careers and all amazing and all just happy and beautiful, so it's great fun." Fehr also talked about working with Holly Hunter, saying, quote, "Holly is fantastic. Intimidating to a certain extent, I suppose. I am a little bit older now. I've worked with a couple of Academy Award winners, so I don't see myself as in her echelon, but I could definitely hope that I can help her do the best job that she can. But she's really lovely and giving and an incredibly hardworking actor. What I mean by that, she makes it seem so easy and so light and throwaway, but there's a lot of preparation that comes beforehand, which is so much fun to me as an actor. To be able to do rehearsals, it's not something you get on a normal show. You don't get to do rehearsals, but I think having Holly here, having Holly always find the time to do the work because she's such a professional and she's so experienced. Listen, she's off book in rehearsal. She's off book at the table read. It's amazing. There's no work there. When you're acting with her, you just have to watch out, because what happens to me a lot of times is oh my God, she's amazing. Oh shit, I'm out of the scene. You just need to stay in because she is so incredible." And when asked how he would feel if Vance turned out to be a Badmiral, Fehr reflected that, "I love the character of Admiral Vance. I love the fact that sometimes he needs to be very harsh. He needs to be very tough. He needs to do things that many times will make him not the most liked character, but he does that within the decision making for the positive, always trying to find the most positive solution. I love the character for that. As long as it works, bring it on. But if they need to at some point turn him into a villain, I don't know. I agree with you. Badmiral is definitely something I've heard many times, but so far we haven't done it. But whatever happens, I trust showrunners Alex Kurtzman and Noga Landau and the producers and the writing team to make really great decisions. This show is something I am very proud of." Bill, how have you been enjoying Oded Fehr's performance as Admiral Charles Vance?
He's such like a comforting presence. I think, people have. I'm a big fan of Star Trek Discovery. People obviously have a variety of opinions on that show. One thing that I would never take away from Discovery was their casting from kind of beginning to end.
Totally, yeah.
And Oded Fehr was such a get, and I remember seeing him for the first time and die trying when they get to the Federation.
Yeah.
And being kind of instantly like taken with him as like a credible, totally believable Star Trek admiral who's got gravitas. And at the time when you first meet him, there's like an air of like, is he going to be a problem? Is he going to be a help? Like, what's the deal here? And I think he walks that line from the minute you meet him, and as you get to know him and as he kind of extends his stay throughout the show, he just becomes such a comforting force of authority, but empathy and good faith. Seeing him extend into this show has been one of those like warm handoff elements that's been really encouraging. Speaking just for myself, like as I kind of calibrate to the tone of the show and the youthful vigor of it, people like Oded Fehr's presence is like a sort of like balancing act that kind of keeps it level. And whenever he's on screen, he just brings so much credibility and just like gravitas. I just think he brings a ton to every scene he's in, and I'm thrilled that he's there and in such a pretty consistent manner. He wasn't in this particular episode, I don't think, but he's been pretty active in the episodes that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think Vance is great. I love the character. I love the look. I love the uniform. I love the accent. I love the sense of authority. I love that it's got that nice sort of... He's a nice carryover character from Star Trek Discovery because in the same way that Discovery needed that sort of like bridge to the rest of Starfleet.
Yeah.
Discovery needed that as a ship at a time. Academy needs that as a ship that serves a very specific purpose that's different from the rest of the fleet. And so he kind of serves in that same role, which is very comforting and, you know, ups the sort of interconnectedness of this shared fictional narrative over the 60 years. And anybody who listens to this show knows that, you know, definitely always gets me going. Like, that's one of the things I really love about Star Trek. And so, you know, him and Jet Reno, you know, and some of the sort of references to and building off of things that happened in Discovery, like, that's all, you know, very yum, 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 yum to me, right? Like, just
Sure.
I really like that. And he's just, as you say, he's a very comforting presence because the character always has his stuff together, you know, whether what they're trying to do works out or doesn't work out, like, has a level head, you know, is a good mentor, but also a good leader. And yeah, it just all works really nicely, and love the character. And that is one like well-tailored admiral's uniform.
It is. It's a sharp looking uniform. And I, like the question about the Badmiral, I really hope they don't do that. I hope
Yes.
that, and I imagine that they would not do such a thing to such a good and well-established character at this point. And to me, that's the strength of the character, is that Star Trek is so loaded with admirals who turn out to be adversaries or acting in bad faith or in conflict with our heroes. He is a breath of fresh air. I mean, he's kind of an extension of what Admiral Forrest kind of was for Enterprise, but he gets to do so much more than like show up on a monitor telling Archer, set a course for here and go visit this place or follow this distress call, and occasionally getting a scene here or there. Like Oded Fehr has moments that are kind of like that in Discovery and even so far here, where he's kind of popping in and out and giving exposition or setting forth the kind of mission of the week. But then he has other examples of real, like, sinking his teeth into real material. I always think of the season 3 episode at the end of the season. There is a tide, where he's kind of tangoing diplomatically with Osira and the Emerald Chain, and he's fantastic in those scenes. I think they're so richly kind of put together, and you know, he's capable of doing both of those things, and that's the strength of the character. His kind of contrast to what many other Star Trek iterations have done with the various admirals who kind of come and go.
Well, and lastly this week, the Nacelle Company have made 2 big announcements. The first is that production is complete on a new run of their Wave 1 action figures. After quality control issues stopped shipments just before Christmas, Nacelle expects that shipments of Wave 1 of their action figure series will resume by the end of February. And today, the company made a big announcement that to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, they would be releasing a playset of the USS Enterprise bridge from Star Trek the original series in the same 1/10 scale of their new action figure line. The bridge will be released in 12 parts that will release monthly, which when brought together will create a full 360-degree around recreation of the bridge, fit for your new Nacelle TOS action figure collection. The full TOS crew is coming in Wave 3, and it won't be small. When complete, the bridge will be nearly 40 inches across, and will also include light and sound components. Bill, are you making space on your shelf/floor for a 3-foot across TOS bridge?
Well, I just learned about this today. So I haven't begun to make those preparations or make any big decisions yet, but it's really cool looking, as often is the case with the Nacelle Company's stuff. I think when they announce these things and they put together the graphics and the way they're kind of marketing the materials, it just looks sleek and cool. And I love the idea. And I hope it's as fantastic as it appears in these kind of early advertisements, because it's tempting. I mean, that's big. It's really big. It's bigger than I expected when I first kind of perused the article, but it's very tempting. I imagine do you have every intention, like, this is obviously going to wind up on the shelf somewhere in your place?
So when I first read the announcement today, I was just like, oh, I'm all in.
Okay.
All in. I mean, they didn't announce pricing. So, like, if it's $500 a segment,
well, then
probably not.
Yeah.
You
they have
know?
to be reasonable.
But if it's $100 a segment, I mean, when you add all that together over 12 months, maybe I shouldn't think too deeply about it. But, like, would I pay $100 a month? Yeah, I probably would, you know? But it's as I was sitting down to write this story, and it appeared a couple of times in the TrekCore story that it's 40 inches across, and I then started to think about, well, how big is 40 inches really? And then it's like, well, that is almost 4 feet
Yeah.
long. Like that is
Like, what are you going to do with this thing?
huge. I mean, it's got to be on the floor. You can't. I mean, they don't make a. They don't make it. I mean, unless you display it in pieces.
Yeah.
Sort of like have 2 or 3 pieces on a shelf and then have 2 or 3 more pieces on another shelf. I guess you could do it that way. And you also, I don't know if you have to buy all 12, like if you just want Uhura's communication station or you just want Spock's science station, the way they look in the pictures, they're very nice display pieces.
Yeah.
Even if you just get one.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if you get like the Uhura action figure and you get Uhura's, station. Like that's a really nice display.
Sure.
That it's much smaller
great.
than buying the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's still going to have the lights. It's still going to have the sounds. It'll still be a great piece by itself.
You got to imagine that that's probably going to be the more realistic, more common purchase than the whole thing, just because of the logistics.
Yes.
Like, you have to have
crazy morons like me who are probably going to buy the whole thing. Like, we are a mentally ill minority.
Well, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. How about this? I'll buy it, and then you can come over to my house and play with it.
That's fantastic. I would definitely play with the figures in that reenact some episode. I would love it.
We'll do a get together of the whole friend group just so that people can play with the 3-foot across TOS bridge.
That sounds great. It sounds great to 10-year-old me, and it sounds equally great to almost 40-year-old me.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's offer our opinions on the Star Trek franchise.
Your opinion has been noted. Anything further?
So as we transition from the news section to the opinion section, each week my guest and I will give you a Star Trek opinion, wish, or theory we're nurturing that week about any aspect of the Star Trek franchise we want to opine on. So Bill, let's hear it. What's your big Star Trek opinion for this week?
It's not really an opinion. It's just kind of a thought and a wonder. And I think maybe you've addressed it on the show over the last few episodes. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly. But I'm really wondering, like, what do you think the odds are that season 5 of Strange New Worlds arrives before the end of the year? Like, where are you on that today? Do you think that's likely?
By the end of this year?
The show, by the end of 2026, seasons 4 and 5, given the 6 episode, is it realistic and possible that season 4 would arrive maybe in the early summer, late spring, and then we're talking like in the winter, these 6 episodes would drop? Maybe over 5 weeks, because they like to drop 2 episodes on the first Thursday of the run. I don't know. Like, I just wonder about like the 60th anniversary and the calendar and the choice with the smaller run of episodes and how to fill the calendar. If that's something that this regime that is nebulously in existence, there's so many unknowns. I don't know. I'm curious about what the rest of the year will bring.
Yeah,
with it being the 60th, and are they going to hold it to 27, or are they going to be eager to get it out and have it out in the world as these transitions, get deeper and deeper with Paramount political changes and the like?
Yeah, I mean, it'd probably be ready by the end of the year. It'd probably be ready by, towards the end of the year.
Towards the end,
yeah. They finished filming, they finished filming right before Christmas.
Yeah, it's usually about a year.
6 episodes. It's usually about a year, but if it's only 6 episodes, theoretically it should only take them 4/5, 3/5 of the amount of time that it would take them to do a regular season. So 8 months rather than 12 months or something like that. I'm not good at math. So yeah, like theoretically they could. And if they had announced like another show and that felt like that was sort of getting
in the pipeline,
that was in the pipeline and filming was going to start in the next 6 months, then maybe, because it's like, well, let's clear the decks for this new show that's coming. But since they haven't, and it probably would be, if they announced something today, it'd be 2 years before you had anything to show. It probably makes sense to hold Strange New Worlds until next year. Season 5 until next year. Season 4 will almost certainly premiere this summer.
Yeah, right.
Because then you have Starfleet Academy season 1 now, Strange New Worlds season 4 this summer, Starfleet Academy season 2 in January of next year, Strange New Worlds in the summer. So you've sort of booked out your Star Trek until the end of 2026.
Yeah. So you
And
can,
then hopefully Starfleet Academy season 3 comes in early 2028.
fingers crossed. At this point, that would be a great development that I'm
Yeah.
certainly very heavily rooting for. Yeah, no, I mean that's an interesting. I find myself thinking about this a lot, just with the way the shows will fall and trying to predict, like trying to get it in the heads of, which is impossible given how much turmoil is sort of seemingly happening with just Paramount changes. And,
Yeah.
people's statuses with contracts and stuff. So that always makes me wonder, like, is it a race to get it out? Is it almost like they want to, is there a concern about what we're talking about with like stretching it into 28 for the hopeful next thing? Or is it, is there rumblings that there's not an urgency to do more Star Trek in that rapid a time, and there's more of like, oh, just get it out before the changes start to manifest? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other thing that could maybe contribute to it coming sooner would be if they decide not to renew Alex Kurtzman's contract.
That's what I think it would be a bellwether of, for sure.
Because then it would just be like,
get it out.
Just dump it.
Yeah.
I mean, a dump it's too harsh, but like we're ready to turn the page on the Kurtzman era of Star Trek. Let's just kind of get it out there, right? Starfleet Academy season 1's out now. Season 4 of Strange New Worlds in the summer. Season 5 of Strange New Worlds in the fall. Season 2 of Starfleet Academy in the winter, and then you're done. Kurtzman era is finished, and you can move on mid-2027 to whatever comes next. So maybe, but I don't think. The way Alex Kurtzman was talking about it, in the run-up to the Starfleet Academy premiere, it doesn't sound like he thinks he's going anywhere.
Yeah.
I know there's a ton of, stupid stuff online.
Of course. I was
fired for the 17 millionth time.
Right. Since 2017.
Right. And now because they know the contract's coming due, it's like
that's intensifying. Sure.
Yeah, it's intensifying because everybody's got a hook for that story that they have for the last few years.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's just like you've got 2 years worth of Star Trek in the hopper.
And you have 4 seasons. So.
Yeah, you've got 4 seasons. Yeah. They're pretty much finished. I mean, Starfleet Academy season 2 is filming right now, but that's expected to be done by the end of February. So you'll have 4 seasons in the hopper. And then that really does table set for whatever comes next. Whether that's more Starfleet Academy and Starfleet Academy is the only show, whether that's more Starfleet Academy and something else.
Yeah.
I think they're still gonna. I think they're gonna want to do something else. Like
I hope so. Yeah.
This version of Paramount is gonna want to see what they can do to make another big successful Star Trek show.
Yeah.
I don't think they're just gonna walk away from it, especially because the new head of Paramount Plus is such a big Star Trek fan himself.
Sure. Yeah.
That guy's not been a huge Star Trek fan his whole life and now is in a position to commission a new Star Trek show and not take the opportunity to do that. I don't think that happens. Well, but it's going to take him a couple of years to get lined up. So like what they have in the tank right now is, will sort of stretch through to whatever this new Paramount regime's version of Star Trek looks like, with Alex Kurtzman, without Alex Kurtzman, with Starfleet Academy, without Starfleet Academy. I mean, all of that still, to sort of figure out.
Well, I hope you're right.
Me too. All right, I'll give you my opinion this week, and it's just like, I increasingly feel completely divorced from the way that Star Trek gets talked about online. Like, I just feel like I live in a completely different universe from a lot of the discourse I see. And we didn't cover it on the show because it's so stupid and it's just not worth it. But I do think that the Elon Musk, Stephen Miller intervention into the Star Trek discourse has really poisoned the well on Trek, because it's made it a culture war thing that people who probably have seen one episode in their whole life now want to comment on.
Right.
I alluded to this last week. I loved Vox and Excelso, and so I wrote a quick tweet about it. I didn't write a post about this week's episode because everyone was talking about it.
Sure. Yeah.
But like the Klingon episode, I was like, I think and everybody said everything there is to say about the Sisko thing. I could put a post out there. It would not say anything new that anybody hasn't said.
Sure.
I felt like the Vox and Excelsior was the best Klingon episode since Deep Space Nine. And I hadn't seen anybody say that, so I was like, I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So I put that on Blue Sky and I put it on X. And on X, it was not retweeted by like a big, right-wing account saying, look at this R word. But I got like 110 replies to the post.
I saw.
And it was all just people being like, you're a homosexual soy boy retard, like, who's on SSRIs. And it was just like, it was nasty. I mean, really nasty. And like, I don't give a hoot, it doesn't, I just block it and move on. And it just felt very manufactured because people were looking for that stuff.
Yeah.
Before that post, I will occasionally cross-post stuff on Blue Sky and X. And for maybe the last 18 months, if I put a Star Trek thing on, I think I posted about like First Contact or something like that. Like 6 months ago, I did a tweet about First Contact. Put it on Blue Sky, got a nice reaction from all of our friends. Great. They liked my thing about First Contact. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's crickets. No, nothing. Like no engagement, no likes, no nothing. And whatever, and just putting it out there to put it out there, right?
Sure.
But then this one I put up and it just gets a ton of response.
Yeah.
I mean, I put the hashtag in Star Trek Starfleet Academy, but I just think because of the Elon Musk and Stephen Miller comments about Starfleet Academy, and if folks are listening, you don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, honestly, you're probably better off.
You're better off. Yeah.
But if you want to, you can find them. I'm not going to bother explaining what the comments were. But like, since they made those comments, it just feels like within that sort of right-wing media ecosystem, a target got painted on the back of Starfleet Academy.
It's a real shame.
Yeah, and that is obviously frothing on X. But I think it is bleeding over into other spaces. And that's not me going so far as to say, if you criticize Starfleet Academy, you're a right-wing lunatic or you're a whatever, right? There are plenty, like, people who have criticisms of Starfleet Academy, and I have read some thoughtful criticisms of Starfleet Academy, and I'm like, I don't agree with you, but that's a thoughtful criticism. You didn't just say it was bad writing and bad characters and didn't respect canon, which is what 90% of them are. And it's like, well, what does bad writing really mean?
Yeah, what
it just means you didn't enjoy it. That didn't mean it's bad writing. It just means it didn't connect with you.
Remark you can
It's the laziest remark. Because what's the solution to that? Just write better. Okay, great, good, great advice.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Blank, yeah.
Right. But there is like, and it's such a shame because the show does not deserve it.
No.
I think it's a great show. And I don't just think that because, like, I mean, I am what Ashley Edward Miller from the Inglorious Treksperts would describe as a test pattern Trekkie. I typically like everything.
Me too. Yep.
But I'm not liking it just because I like everything. Yeah. I'm blessed that I like everything. It's great to watch things and not like very little of it because I like to enjoy things.
I think that's what makes us a fan, is that we're accepting of kind of the whole of it on a spectrum, perhaps. Like maybe there's elements of it that we're more drawn to than others, but it's not a either or. We're there for the whole buffet.
Yeah, but I genuinely think this is a good show, right? Like I'm not just saying
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I do too.
And especially because I was ready not to think it was a good show.
And you know what? It's a good Star Trek show, in my view. Like the way that they're building, I think my favorite thing about the show is surprising to me, and I'm not saying that I don't love these things, but it's not Holly Hunter. It's not Robert Picardo. It's not Tig Notaro. It's the cadets. Right. And to me, it's the cadets because what they're doing by building these backstories and where they're coming from, I read those things to be undeniably, recognizably, comfortably Star Trek. These characters who come from troubled pasts or broken families or harsh expectations, pressures that are difficult to, like, I hear that I think of, the characters of TNG that come from broken homes or single parent families or orphan situations, foster homes, or the B'Elanna Torres from Voyager, Tom Paris from, like, these characters who come from these difficult backgrounds and find the best version of themselves through what we're seeing these characters do. We're just seeing them actually do it we're not watching characters who have arrived through that process and are in the depths of their careers. We're seeing what makes these people become what we know they can become through this Starfleet experience.
Yeah.
So I look at it and I'm like, it's a Star Trek show. It's just about people that are in a different phase of that Star Trek Starfleet life.
Right.
And I love it for that. I think it's a breath of fresh air, and it's the first completely new thing that live action Star Trek has done since what? I don't even know. Deep Space Nine,
right.
I guess.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Yeah. It's just I felt throughout Discovery, throughout Picard, throughout all of it, you know, I've always felt this sort of sense of like some of this stuff just feels very bizarro world to me, but I just feel that so acutely with Starfleet Academy.
It's so, yeah.
And given that it's actually a great show, like I just find myself, I just really pray it doesn't negatively impact the prospects for the show.
And I hope it, my maybe even bigger hope is that the people who are making it know that people like you and me are here.
Yes.
And we love the heck out of it.
Yes.
And that we appreciate it, and that it speaks to us, and that it's not just the junk that the loudmouths on X say.
Yes.
Like, there's so much more going on than that. And I hope that these young actors and the writers and the people who are producing the show know that their work is being consumed by people who like it.
Yes.
And appreciate it and want it to continue.
Yeah, I want that. I also want the Paramount executives to know that too.
Yeah, 100%.
Like,
it's urgent that they do.
Yes, that they don't get swayed by Elon Musk said a stupid thing and Stephen Miller said a stupid thing about this show.
They got some mix of bots and people riled up.
Right. And that they then lose their nerve over it because, you know, it briefly dipped into the culture war, and these companies are so deathly afraid of anything that dips into the culture war.
It becomes more trouble than it's worth, and it's easy to just say, "Yep, done." And that is a fear. That's scary.
It is scary. Yeah, it is scary. And I'm just like just go away. Just go away.
It's also
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. We could go on and on about this forever.
We could. There's a whole nother angle to take with the Twitter and the sadness of what was and now is not, with the ability to connect with people that I know you've addressed in the past. That really weighs on me too. It's a shame.
Do you have an opinion, theory, or wish about Star Trek that you'd like to share? Email them to me at weeklytrek@trekcore.com, and I might feature your thoughts in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Bill Mann, for joining me today. Bill, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
You can mainly find me on Blue Sky at TrekFan4387, where I'm doing an ongoing cyclical rewatch of all things Star Trek and commenting typically weekly on whatever the new episode of the week is, for whatever that's worth.
And where are you up to right now?
I am in the middle of, about 3/4 of the way through season 4 of Deep Space Nine and season 2 of Voyager. So right in the like nitty gritty of the 90s. Yeah, like coming right into that point of season 2 of Voyager, where it really picks up some steam and kind of doesn't look back, in my view. And Deep Space Nine is just chugging at a pace right now. So good things.
Well, and you can find this show on X at Weekly Trek, and me on Alexander T. Perry on X, not that I would know why you would want to, and at Alex T. Perry on Blue Sky and everywhere else. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And for all your Star Trek news needs, in addition to our extensive media archives of all things Star Trek, I hope you'll keep your senses locked to TrekCore.com. Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper. Weekly Trek is a production of TrekCore.com and owned by Trapezoid Media, LLC.